Estate planning refers to your ability to decide how things will be handled, how decisions will be made at your incapacity, and then further along at your passing. You have the ability, we have the ability to decide how all that works out. There's another plan that you can tie into, I call it the default plan, and that's what the state legislature has chosen to be the plan for you if you don't make your own plan. I'm here to tell you that for a whole bunch of people, a majority plus, the state's default plan is not, you're not going to like it. You're going to want to do your own plan. So today I want to take that estate planning, the things that we can decide as far as managing assets, managing us and our decisions. I really want to go to the next step with that. So we've coined some terminology around here. We call it the no place like home. We work with a lot of people that want to, the terminology that I've seen out and about is age in place. I want to live in my home. I want to be in charge of what's going on. I don't want to go into a facility. That always concerns me because one, there's quite a bit of ignorance around what it means to go into a facility. When I was a kid, we used to go into the nursing homes. That was the term that was used. And we would go in and we would sing for the, the residents. Mom would play the piano and then we might give a little presentation and then sing some songs for them. And as a kid, I remember the nursing home or the home was the linoleum floors, the smells were a little, they kept it pretty well clean. And it was pretty sparse. And so I know a whole generation of people have pulled their oldest daughter. They could do it with their oldest son, but they generally, actually, they give it to all the kids. It's the oldest daughter then that implements it and says, you got to promise me that you will never put me in a home. And so that's carried over. And I got to be honest, I haven't seen a home, as that term was used, for a long, long time. And we've split that out and we define it differently. So outside of the home that you are in, there are certain levels. One might be to move into an over 55 community, where the homes are a little smaller, somebody's handling the lawn, and the landscaping, but you're still very independent. The next level might be an independent living facility where you are in an apartment inside of a larger community. And you have the ability in an independent living to purchase a meal plan. And so they take care of all the shopping and all the cooking, and they serve the food. And here's my favorite part: they do the dishes, and they don't run out of food. So you can tie in. My mother-in-law was struggling, and my wife took her and her dad to lunch at a place that was not far from her home. And it was independent living, and brought her in, and they were sitting down, and my mother-in-law had 8 kids. And so when it came time for dinner, they call it, which is lunchtime for me in my brain, they brought around a tray of food, and there were multiple levels, and they asked her what she'd like for lunch or for dinner. And she said, oh, whatever's left over, which of course is how she saw the world. She fed the kids, and then whatever's left over, that's what she has. So whatever's left over. And the young man that was serving just kind of looked at her and said, I got everything here. You know, there was some fish, there was some chicken and salad. And she was like, oh my goodness, well, I would like the fish. Anyhow, she had the fish, and then he came back around, they collected the dishes, and he asked her, you know, brought around the tray again and said, what would you like for dessert? And of course, she did the same thing. It was like, oh, well, whatever you have there. He goes, I got everything. Would you like? And so it was just interesting watching this process with her. And then when she was finished, even though she wasn't doing well, she stood up and she started to collect all the dishes. This is habit, right? And my wife goes, Mom, they take care of that for you. You don't need to do that. And she looked at her husband at this point and said, I'm gonna like it here. And so that's kind of the next step where you can offload, if you will, some of those activities that you take care of on your own. And we've seen that nutrition is often a difficult thing for people living on their own. So from independent living, assisted living is when you need a little bit of help. Then from assisted living to skilled nursing, and skilled nursing is you need true nursing care, and quite a bit more help. And so that's kind of along the spectrum. And when people say, well, I don't ever want to go into a facility, I got to say, well, okay, do you know what you're saying? And often they don't. With the COVID thing, we had a whole bunch more people say, you know, I'm just not going to go in a facility. It's dangerous. These people, we got COVID, da, 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 da. And so I was like, okay, but if you're going to stay in your home, if you are going to, you know, care for yourself, we want to do the best that we can to help you be in a situation where you're well cared for, that you're safe, and that you're having a high quality of life. So for us, that's kind of the mantra. Great, be in the home, but there may be some things that you would get in, independent living or assisted living that you probably aren't going to get at home unless you take those steps. And so hence this list, and let me kind of walk through that, maybe a little bit of a trot or a jog. We'll get into all of this, and we have, and by the way, Aaron Olson, who's with us, has helped us to kind of dig into some of these topics. So let me dig in. First thing, I've mentioned already that this is, you know, we want to see a high quality of life. The last thing I want to mention, kind of in way of introduction, is we found out that this is really multidisciplinary, meaning, you know, when people say, well, yeah, I have a lawyer, I have an estate planning lawyer. The estate planning lawyer doesn't know all this stuff. The estate planning lawyer could say, okay, listen, you know, I've got some people for you to talk to. And then I guess we could, you know, follow up a little bit. We try, but let's talk about some of the areas that you need to be thinking. And then, you know, in each of those, well, who might you bring to your team? So legal, we mentioned that already. This is kind of the foundational stuff. One of the things that I'm looking for is your ability to preserve that ability to make decisions. So some things you make those decisions now, For example, if you are in a situation where it's a long-term illness and you're terminal, or you are in a persistent vegetative state, I call those the teenage years, right? That's that beeping thing doesn't beep, so my kind of goes like this. Anyhow, if we're in that situation, what do we want to have happen? We won't be able to make that decision then. So we anticipate that and we make the decision now, and we get that put down on paper. So that's kind of the foundational stuff. Preserve your ability to make decisions, and then we look at protections. We want to protect you, and the next step would be protecting your family, and the next step would be protecting your stuff. All right, and that all falls under that little umbrella of the legal things that you need to be looking at. And so, who do you talk to? Well, that's what we do. There are other attorneys that do the same thing. This is where the attorney weighs in and can walk you through the tools that you need to look at and the strategies that you would like to adopt. So the next thing, kind of foundational, is the financial. And let me say that. Well, hang on. I'm gonna talk about that. No, let me say it now. Why the financial? What's the thing about the financial? I'm living in my house. It's paid for, right? I don't need to worry about finances. Well, yeah, you do. You still do, right? I mean, you still got to eat. If you're driving, and it would be okay if you don't drive anymore, I would weigh in and go, yay, good decision, like it. Those are things you need to take care of. The house, even if it's paid for, there's maintenance. There's always some, if you've owned a home for more than, say, 8 months, okay, mate, I'll give you a year. You know, there's always something to take care of in the home. There's always something that needs to be fixed or replaced. You got to maintain it. There's, the new roof. Does it need to be painted? Is it time for new carpet? Who's mowing the lawn? Who's trimming the trees back? All of that takes some effort and it costs some money. If you get to the point where you need a little bit more help, meaning you can't quite get everything done, I'm not aware. I'm open, if somebody is aware of, these volunteer brigades that will come and provide all of that service for you while you're at home. So you're going to have to be able to afford it. If we're looking at some in-home care, not medical care, but in-home care, a little help with, fixing meals, cleaning, if we need a little bit of help bathing or toileting or just transferring, say, from a wheelchair into your bed and then back out and getting dressed, need a little help to that. You got to pay for that. That's a reality of life. And so financial, we want to make sure that if you want to be at home, that you have the wherewithal to make that happen. And I know that there's this logic that says, well, yeah, well, I paid for my house, I have some income, it's still cheaper than being in, say, assisted living. And I'm here to tell you, not necessarily. Attend the conference, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So what are some other financial concerns that you might be aware of? Well, one is, we call it asset protection. And what does that mean? Well, we just don't want your finances to go out the door, or that people take those that you didn't intend to take that. Theft, straight out theft. We've been involved in a situation, there was straight out theft by somebody that our client trusted. It happens. Then there are the scams. I get an email, we get quite a bit of traffic in here. So I get an email about once a day saying, click here and get this, click here and review this to make sure we got it right. I mean, they want you to click because as soon as you click, then they can get access to your computer, they can get access to information. And if they can get that information, then, they can take money. We've talked about a number of different scams. We'll do it again in October. The big one right now is, listen, we're testing this situation, would you go down to Fred Meyer and buy $2,000 worth of gift cards? And we all like to help, and so we tend to get caught up in that stuff. Well, we want to make sure that we're protected about that. Kids and grandkids can chew up money. I've had two situations recently where the one child was borrowing money from mom. And quite frankly, they didn't have the money to be able to lend it. And that made me nervous because as they go along, right, are they going to have enough assets to take care of themselves? So that's one thing about asset protection. Tax planning. We don't always appreciate that. We just keep paying our taxes. And is there anything we can do? We can't get out of income taxes. And the answer is, well, maybe we can't get out of income taxes, but there's some strategies that would help us reduce the amount that we pay. That's awesome. Don't talk to me. I can give you ideas, but I'm going to send you to a financial advisor, whether it's an insurance professional or a certified financial planner, your CPA. These are people that can pick that discussion up and say, well, you're paying a little bit more than you have to. You're going, oh yeah, I can afford that. It's a little bit, but a little bit over 10 years turns out to be quite a bit. The long-term care planning, we touched on that. How do you pay for that care? Hang on to that. We're going to come back and talk about that in just a little bit. And then how do you make it last? How do you stretch out what you have? People are living longer. We are living longer. I have a doctor who keeps pushing this on me and pushing that. So you got to take this pill and that pill. We're going to get you to live longer. But living longer doesn't necessarily mean that we're living better. So go back to that conversation about a high quality of life. If our health, if we're still here, doesn't mean we necessarily have great health. If we don't have the great health, do we need people coming in, to provide us care? Well, that costs money. So how are you going to plan for that? So, how to make it last. Should you downsize? Now, one of the reasons people talk about no place like home or I want to age in place is the challenge of moving out of, say, the family home into a smaller place. Well, there's some benefits to doing that. I know there's some drawbacks, I get it, but there are some benefits to doing that, meaning it doesn't cost maybe as much to live. Utilities might be less. We might be in a place where somebody else is doing the landscaping for you and taking care of the place. So is downsizing worthwhile? I don't know for you, that's a conversation to have with a financial professional. What about a reverse mortgage? My mom would have done a reverse mortgage solely on the strength of Tom Selleck, doing the commercial about, doing a reverse mortgage. She was a big fan. And so she would have done that just for Tom Selleck. I know that there's a lot of misinformation, not just the ignorance, but misinformation. And so my best, advice is who to talk to. Grab somebody that does reverse mortgages and see if that fits. I was visiting with a good friend of ours who says, you know how I make it, and I don't have to work as much. I have a reverse mortgage. And I go, weren't you concerned? Because I know a lot of people that are. And she said, I talked to the right people. We walked through it. The rules have changed. The federal rules have changed so that now, if you do that pursuant to the new rules, you don't give the house over to the mortgage company. You don't give it away. You will be able to access equity. Great. And then there's something for the kids, or you sell the house if you do end up needing a little more care than you can get at home. So the reverse mortgage is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, if you're sitting there going, oh no, the Smiths down the road and they pay this and this, talk to an expert. So that's somebody to talk to there. That can be a great strategy. We've seen it work with a number of couples who he needed to be in assisted living and she couldn't afford to maintain, the budget at home. The reverse mortgage happened to turn out to be a very good tool. Not for everybody, but can be a good tool. So that's a conversation. This is somebody you need to plug into your team. Maybe they're not there for the long run, but that's somebody to bring in and talk to. And then there's all the financial strategies that you should not ask me about, okay? Where and how to invest. Are you in the stock market? Do you do annuities or some other insurance products? And the differences are the stock market can give you a lot of growth. And we found out that they can suck you dry. This depends on the timing. Annuities and other insurance products don't have the same potential for growth. But there's also not a lot of downside. You can access that. So if you're in a place where you want all that growth and you can live long enough for the market to come back, then the market might be okay if you don't want to deal with that. And I meet lots of people that don't. An annuity, other insurance products like that can be huge. So I'm not here selling any of this. I'm just telling you that you need to talk. This is a person to put on your team, a financial professional who can walk you through this, look at your situation and give you some recommendations. If he's a professional, if she's a professional, they're not going to tell you what to do. They'll give you some recommendations and you're going to have to make some decisions on that. Should you invest in real estate? I am not a big fan of older folks investing in real estate unless you know what to do and how to do it. We have some clients that do, but they're good at it. They've been doing it for a lot of years. If you're, say, 85 and you're going, I'm going to invest in real estate now, let's have that conversation before you decide to do that. And these cryptocurrencies, if you know what they are, congratulations, good for you. Should you invest in cryptocurrencies? Well, we went from like a $3 trillion worth of investments in crypto, and it dropped in 6 months to about 1 million. They lost 2/3 of the value. Now, that may mean this is a good time to get back in it. If you don't know cryptocurrencies, don't do those on your own. Get your financial professional to help you to do that. Your financial professional should be able to tell you when to move from accumulating assets into the growth, right? And when to quit worrying about accumulating and growing and start the spending, because that's as important as anything. How do you pull it out? When do you pull it out? When do you take Social Security? Should you take that the first moment that you can? Should you take it at 70? Should you take it somewhere in between? And the answer is yes, probably one of those. So talk to somebody that can help you walk through that. And here's another one. Some of you, if you're like me, are sitting there going, when do you retire? When's a good time to retire? I'm not going to retire. I'm going to work until I'm dead. Not my recommendation. Please, find some time. Oh, maybe you're doing a part-time gig. Maybe you got a side hustle. Great. But have somebody help you figure out when all that works, so that you can get it in a way that works for you. This is not giving you advice for everybody that's, that will see this. This is, listen, get help for this. All right, another one that we just, it makes me nervous. I walk into some of the homes of older people that I know, and they have the thick shag, the high pile, thick shag carpet from the 70s. And it might still be really good, but it's a trip hazard. And then they might have a little coffee table in front of the couch. As a kid, I fell and hit my head right on the corner of one of those, and I bled and bled and bled. We're not young enough to do that anymore. So, is your house set up for you to be there and be safe on your own? Are there tripping hazards? Are there other hazards? The bathroom is just an accident waiting to happen unless you get somebody who knows what they're doing, come in and say, all right, you need a hand bar here, you need a hand bar here. Got to get rid of this little throw rug here. We can't do that. You're going to trip. And look at the tub. The tub it doesn't have, the little adhesives in there that you can not slip. Do you need a chair in there to sit in? I mean, these are all questions that someone who knows what they're doing can address for you. I can ask the questions. I'm not the person that comes in and helps make that all happen. So those are some things for you to, keep track of. I lost his name. Came and visited with us on the podcast and talked about medication management and pointed out that that's a huge issue for people being able to stay in place, age in place, stay in their homes, is the inability to do proper medication management. You're taking blood pressure pills and you forget. And you get up too quickly in the morning and you're dizzy and you trip and fall. Hit your head on your nightstand. That's not the only one. That's just one that comes to mind. Is there some help for that or with that? And the answer is absolutely. There are a handful of ways to address that. The first thing you need to address, of course, is that it's a good thing to talk about that and not just tell me, well, I got that taken care of. I've had discussions with many kids, went in to visit dad and found out that they had carefully laid out the meds for him to take. And this is 5 days later, and there's one he hasn't taken, or he hasn't taken any of them. Please be open to this. And there are ways to take care of that. There are people that can help out. Again, what are some of the other challenges? Elder abuse. We're involved in a case, and we had two the last, I guess it's been 4 years of elder abuse. And now when I say elder abuse, I don't necessarily mean physical abuse. That happens. That's horrible. But it can be verbal abuse. And of course, it can be somebody just, we talked about that a minute ago, stealing money, that type of thing. Who does the abusing? Well, strangers, that can happen. That's not the typical one. Got to be careful with your caregivers. Can I throw out a scenario? you engage an in-home agency to come and provide some, some help around the house or some care. And you go, oh, this is too expensive. And you talk to your lovely little caregiver and say, listen, you quit them and I'll pay you on the side. Well, one of the things you're getting with the agency, though, is a background check, some insurance to make sure that things don't, if something went sideways, there's some insurance to cover them. You got supervision, you've got training, they have to check in. There's all of this that you get with a, an in-home care company that you don't get with doing it on your own, bringing somebody in. Also, there's some tax issues. That's something we could talk about too. So how do you avoid that? Again, there are steps that you can take. There are people to talk to. If you're dealing with a professional company, they can manage that for you and you don't have to worry about that. Family members, yeah, we've seen it where family members took advantage of dad or mom or grandpa or grandma. It happens. That's a harder one to prevent if something like that happens. That's really hard to prevent. And I know you've got to rely on them. I'm aware of a number of in-home agencies that can work with your family. Now, they can't just take over for them and hire them. Well, they might be able to hire them, but they'd have to pass the background check and be subject to that ongoing supervision. There's a longer discussion though about family members no longer being family members but caregivers. That changes the dynamic of a relationship quite drastically, in fact. Something for you to think about. Avoid it. We talked a little bit about home protection. You have your smoke alarms that, for whatever reason, I don't know why they manufactured them, for the alarm to go off at 2:30 a.m. That's the only time those fire alarms go off, or smoke alarms, when the battery's down, goes off, you almost sound asleep. Anyhow, so do you have your smoke alarms? Do you have CO2 detectors? Have you got that set up so that if something happened, we know about it, and then we have a way to handle that situation? The home repairs, the maintenance. We had somebody over looking at our roof, and they were going through, gave us a really thorough inspection, made some recommendations. Boy, your gutters. I was up, I'd thrown the ball for the dog, and I thought I would be a kid and throw it up over the roof, and I did that much, and then I got caught in the gutter. So I grabbed the ladder, got up into the gutter. Sure enough, there's the ball. And I found out that back gutter is completely full of dirt and leaves and those little twirly things, those seeds, those had settled in. I've got some that are growing now. There's some issues. If we had some rain earlier this year that just really came down. If your rain gutters aren't working right, if they're not clean, can cause some damage to the house. So these are things that we need to pay attention to. And I do know a lady at age 80 and something would get up on the roof of her house with her ladder. One time she knocked the ladder over and nobody heard her. She spent the night on the roof. And so she never did that again for almost a month. And then she was back up on the roof. So these are all things that there are people, experts, who you can engage to do this. And if you're going to be in your house, if you're going to be no place like home, these are things that need to be taken care of. If, for example, you were in independent living, that's all taken care of for you. You make a phone call. So I'm just wanting to make sure that you have a high quality of life and that you are safe. Well, what about your personal health? We were talking about that a little bit a minute ago. You know, we are living longer as a society. We're just not terribly healthy for that whole time. Boy, that would be nice if we could make that work. And so, you know what? You need to take control of that. Again, I'm looking at independent living, or I'm looking at assisted living, and they have somebody that comes in and helps the community members to get out, to move, to do some exercises, do some stretching. What are some of the things? Well, a little bit of strength training. You know, you don't have to be Arnold and lift all those weights, but the ability to get up and out of a chair, catch yourself, and if you actually do fall, do you know how to fall so that you don't break something? Cardiovascular, just a reminder that cardiovascular activity does not include watching TV unless you're doing the exercises with the gal on the TV who's telling you how to do these exercises. Brain health, man, we could do 3 days actually on brain health. And a good friend of mine, Eric Colette, at Brain for All Seasons, he talks about it's not really brain health, it's just health. And so he has a lot of good things to say about that. Somebody to talk to help you figure out where you want to be. Nutrition and weight. You know, if your activity decreases, medical issues and your activity decreases, your weight can respond accordingly. I have now passed that point where it responds in a disproportionate manner. So the weight comes on very quickly and goes off extremely. It's like gas prices in Idaho. Prices go up, shoot up like a rocket, and then slowly come down. And so I'm at that age where it takes quite a bit of effort to bring the weight down and to maintain that. Something for you to think about. There are people that can help with that. Medical, yes, I'm at that age, and partly because I was a teenager in eastern Montana where recklessly riding motorcycles and bikes and pickups and playing football, all kinds of stuff like that. I now have I'm on a first name basis with 5 doctors or 5 doctors' offices. I'm guessing that isn't terribly unusual. Do it. Make sure you get your annual visits in. If you need to go more often, figure out how to do that. Follow through with the recommendations. You might hate them like I do, but there's a reason why they gave you that recommendation. And then again, proper medication management. If you have blood pressure medication and you're supposed to take that every day, take it every day, and figure out a way to get that done. They probably told you to do it at the same time every day. Your health is so important. If you don't take care of it, your ability to stay in your home, if that's what you want to do, will be compromised. It just absolutely will be, and there won't be much you can do about that. We had a sad situation with one of our clients this week. It's just sad, but he won't be going home. He will be going to assisted living, which I'm okay with. I think the kids are kind of okay with. I know he's not. Well, you know what? You gotta handle these things, and I'm recommending you find professionals that can help you handle that. Also with your health is your brain health or your intellectual health, your ability to continue to grow, to learn, to take on new challenges, to understand at least a little bit what's going on in the world. That is a full-time gig, and I don't recommend that you watch TV, whether it's CNN or MSNBC or Fox or any one of them. Don't watch any of those 24 hours a day. Don't do it. That is not good for your psychological well-being. Don't do it. That's all high entertainment. But there's news that you can read and you can follow, and then keep learning. Pick up a new hobby. One of the things that the literature indicates, and is fairly consistent, is music can help the brain and the brain health. They have found that the neural pathways that you develop with learning music, like learning an instrument if you don't already know, or learning a new instrument. And the one I thought was just fascinating was the ability to sing while you play an instrument is blowing up that brain, and the blood's flowing, and you're really developing more neural pathways, which seem to help if you are inclined towards Alzheimer's or other dementias. Gives you a little bit of buffer. So something for you to keep in mind. My wife is a puzzler. She loves puzzles. I love to come and find a piece, put it where it goes, and then move on to something else, which can include, by the way, playing the guitar. Intellectual cognitive challenges. The literature says if you're a Sudoku person, which I happen to be, I do at least one every day, it's okay. They don't say that's a huge deal. It's not as huge as learning, learning a foreign language. That really packs in the new neural pathways as well. Or, like I said, the musical instrument. Traveling is awesome. Get out, see the world. We happen to live in a very beautiful part of the world. Yeah, this is high desert, but man, if you haven't been up to Cascade or McCall, get your kids to, take you on a drive. If that's available to you, do that. Get out and see the world a little bit. Get out and walk, even if it's in your neighborhood, except today I can feel the smoke. Oh, goodness. So watch out for the smoke, all right? And if pollen's not good for you, pay attention to that. But getting out and walking is just get up and move. So emotional, social involvement, good for the brain, good for your overall health. What do you got? Now, again, I hate to keep coming back to this, but it kind of gives us a little compare and contrast. If you were in a quality independent living, they would have a social director, if you will. And they could come in and there'd be activities and lectures and, some learning, people getting together. I'm from two families, three, counting my wife, four. Our parents and their parents were all quilters. I should have a photo of my daughter's quilts. They are amazing. Well, that's the way we used to socialize, is we get around and we do the quilting together, doing those puzzles together. Now I'm gonna go out on a limb. Somebody's gonna catch up with me and say, no, you should never have said that. But you know what? If you were to watch football with some friends, that could be good social, interaction too. I tend to yell at the coach. I watch the Broncos a lot. I tend to yell at the Broncos coach, typically because I don't understand what it is that he's trying to do. And he'd probably tell me, listen, I'm doing the best I can. These are kids. Don't forget they're kids. So watch maybe, professional, then you can yell at them and there's no excuses. Anyhow, that might be an okay social. It's not real physical, and I don't know about how intellectual it is, but that could be good social interaction. I feel strongly about spiritual involvement. Church, going to church, being involved in church groups, taking opportunities within that, the church community to serve. I think that is huge for your physical health, your emotional, your social health. Religion can just be a huge thing. Those of you that are inclined to pray, meditation has been shown to be very effective to help maintain health. Praying is a very strong form of meditation. If you are inclined, read your scriptures. These are things that you can do to just help. All these are little things, I know. Some of them are big and some of them help a little, but combined, this is great. So those are the things that I think of when people say, I got to stay in my house. Okay, I'm not opposed to that, but here is a short list. You're going, well, there's 2 pages of that, Mark. I don't know what you're talking about short. Yes, but it's still kind of a short list of things for you to think about, to talk to doctors about, other caregivers about, the professionals that come in and help you make your house safe, nutrition, diet, all of these things that you might have access to in, say, independent living or assisted living, that you can replicate at home. I find that a lot of people don't. But if you want to stay in your home, you got to maintain all of that. You've got to keep your health, your cognitive ability. You got to keep all that sharp, and it's up to you, but you don't have to do it all by yourself. So pull together your team. Join us in October 12th, 13th, and 14th for our No Place Like Home conference. It's our 3rd one. We're learning. We're going to get there. That's the theme for us this year, is how to pull together that team. The people that you can ask the questions, get them answered to enhance your safety, your well-being, and then ultimately what we're looking for is a quality experience. Had a neighbor, lived on her own. She was 93 or 4. She wanted to outlive an aunt who lived to be 113. I don't want to be 113. Maybe if I am reasonably good health and cognitively still pretty sharp. But she lived at home. She was not going in one of those homes. And she had this huge TV and a recliner, and she sat in front of the TV. That's what she did all day. The house was unlocked. If you knocked to go visit her, come on in. So, her safety was an issue. All of this just made me very, very concerned. And by the way, the family as well. Don't want you to be in that situation. Want you to be where you choose to be. Maybe that's a better way to say this, because independent living could be your home. You choose that, not you have to be there. Or assisted living, you choose to get a little bit more help, not because you're forced to be there. But if you don't do this plan, if you're not in control, then you'll get the default plan, which is, we're going to put you in a home. I hate that term so much. We're going to put you in a home. And if you don't want that, then you have to take control. And one of the ways to make this work is to get your team together. So that's it. You saw my notes and my outline. Work on a checklist for you if you would like. But then join us again in October. and we'll visit with some experts, and they'll help us to understand how to put together a team and, what we could expect, where, we would like to go with that. In the meantime, you'll catch our newsletter and our, email blast, and be thinking about the quality of life that you want, and then figure out what you're willing to do to maintain that quality of life. All right, thank you for joining me. Used up almost all the time. If you have a quick question, be glad to take that.
Hold on, audio now.
If not, then we'll see you at the next event. I think we have one more. No, I think October is our next event. We'd be glad to see you there. Thanks for joining us. Take care.